The Russo-Japanese War, World War I, World War II and Cold War. The Russo-Japanese War was a war fought between Russia and Japan. It was fought on the Asian continent in 1904 to 1905, with the date of September 27, 1905, as the official end of hostilities. The war was a result of Russian encroachment on Japanese interests in Korea, Manchuria, and Mongolia. World War I and World War II were both world wars that took place during the 20th century. World War I began in 1914 and ended in 1918, with the Treaty of Versailles being signed in 1919. World War II started in 1939 and ended with the surrender of Japan on August 15, 1945. The Cold War is a term used to describe the period of geopolitical tension after World War II between the Soviet Union and its allies, the Eastern Bloc, and the United States and its allies, the Western Bloc. The Yalta Conference was a meeting held in the Lavadia Palace in Crimea on February 4 to 11, 1945. It was between the leaders of the Allied powers, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and Soviet Premier Joseph Stalin, to discuss how to divide Europe after World War II. The cause of the tension was that the Western Bloc wanted to control Germany and Austria and therefore wanted to keep control of Eastern Europe. The Soviet Union, on the other hand, had an interest in controlling Eastern Europe because it was very important for them for military reasons. Their main method of getting control over the countries in Eastern Europe was through creating communist governments. They used the Red Army to install a communist government. In Eastern Europe, they used the KGB to install communist governments. In Eastern Europe, their main goal was to be able to control the countries economically and militarily by controlling East Germany, which is just across the border from Western Russia. The New Economic Policy, NEP, and Stalin's five-year plan. The New Economic Policy, NEP, is the name of a new economic policy that was introduced by Soviet Union leader Joseph Stalin in 1928. It was designed to create a planned economy in the Soviet Union. The five-year plan is one of the most important events in Soviet history. It was introduced by Joseph Stalin, who believed that it would make the country prosperous and strong. The five-year plan was intended to be a five-year plan for industrial development and modernization of the Soviet Union, with emphasis on heavy industry and capital investments. The five-year plan was followed by a second plan which lasted from 1928 to 1932, and had aims similar to those of the first plan but with more emphasis on socialist construction rather than industrialization. The five-year plan was not limited to just the Soviet Union, and there were other countries that had their own versions of the five-year industrial development plans. The plan failed to achieve its stated goal of doubling industrial production by 1936. This was largely because in order to achieve this, the Soviet Union would have had to completely ignore international demands, such as their trade with the United Kingdom, which they could not do. The Nazi long-term plan was a plan developed by Adolf Hitler in his role as Chancellor of Germany in 1933, to prepare for what he thought would be the German conquest of Europe and world domination. The plan was one of the first attempts at long-term planning by a state, and established Reich planning for 5 years into the future. However, it was ultimately not enough to develop the German economy. It was drafted in accordance with the doctrine of National Socialist Germany's leader, Adolf Hitler, and featured an industrial-based economy, which served to invigorate the German people and provide them with jobs. The Nazi long-term plan was widely known as the four-year plan. 100 years later, how things look now for Russia today. With the end of World War I, Russia was left in a state of chaos. The country was left without a leader and without a clear vision for the future. This led to the rise of communism. Russia today is an example of how far Russia has come since then. It is now one of the most influential media outlets in the world, with its reach stretching across Europe, Asia, and North America. The role of Russia today is important because it provides information about what's happening in Russia to those who are not familiar with it or are unable to access traditional media sources that cover this region. Additionally, RT offers an alternative perspective on the news, which is important in a geographically based, multicultural, and political environment. The first Russia Today broadcast was held in 2005. The president at the time of Russia Today's creation was Vladimir Putin. And its original mission statement was to provide an alternative point of view to counterbalance the views presented by the U.S. mainstream media. Russia today is reported to have a budget of $300 million and is owned by RT Telecom Limited Liability Company registered in Scotland. With no share capital, and NTV Novosti Holding Company Limited Liability Company registered in England without share capital. RT America is funded by the U.S. government. RT America registered with the U.S. Department of Justice as a foreign agent, claiming to represent the Russian government's interests in the United States. RT America provides a Russian-language website and radio broadcasting service funded by Moscow, and has been described by U.S. intelligence agencies as part of Russia's state-run propaganda machine, which is designed to undermine faith in democratic institutions. In mid-2015, the U.S. intelligence community stated that RT America was one of 3 Russian government-funded outlets actively working to interfere in the 2016 United States elections and discredit democracy, and that it acted as a propaganda bullhorn for the Kremlin's views on world affairs. The network called these claims vastly exaggerated. RT America was founded in 2010 and maintains a U.S. bureau that is based in Washington, D.C. The Russian government has long-standing policies of suppressing political opposition and the media, with a focus on foreign media outlets operating within Russia itself or outside its borders, such as RT's news broadcasts or radio interviews of Russian officials by Western journalists. The reported goal of this effort is to decrease Western influence in Russia. In 2017, the U.S. intelligence community released a declassified report concluding that Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an influence campaign in 2016. He aimed at undermining public faith in the U.S. democratic process, denigrate Secretary Hillary Clinton, and harm her electability and potential presidency. The report further concluded that Putin ordered this campaign to undermine public faith in the U.S. democratic process. Thank you for watching the history of a failed revolution in Russia from 1917 to 1919, Part 1 and 2, and don't forget to subscribe.